Coming up on the Payoff, we sit down with Gordon Harriman. Gordon's been sober for 31 years. His journey to sobriety includes driving a car into a house, scoring and using drugs in the worst areas of Houston, and all the while running a major business at 20 years old. Gordon's story includes a major breakdown and then a breakthrough at 23 years sober. Now, he's got an incredibly full life, and he shares it with us. He has an ability to tell a great story. Gordon Harriman coming up. But first, Kevin Souza.
Stand by the ocean floor.
Gordon, are you ready?
I was born ready.
You were born ready?
Yeah.
Well, let's go, man. Gordon Harriman, what's your sobriety date?
April the 1st of 1991.
April 1st, 1991.
April Fool's Day, bro. I had a backup plan.
It sounds like it. When was the first time you got loaded?
I was in 6th grade. My sister was dating a guy. Long hair, typical back then. And I remember I must have been a nuisance. So he gave me a 40 of Budweiser. And I drank it. Keep me out of the way, I guess.
Did you have the reaction where it felt great, or were you so young where it didn't matter?
I didn't have that, oh man, I found the liquid gold. But I liked the effects of it. Because I could act goofy, and sort of that kid you wanted to be, and not so reserved. I liked that. It was more of an adventure. I was doing things that kids my age weren't. I had an older sister, so I got introduced to a lot of things through her.
You have alcoholism in your family, right?
Yeah, it killed my dad, and he was dry for 13 years, and in 1984, or 2 years before that, he started drinking again, and he just went right back to where he was, and it took him 2 years to drink himself to death.
So you grew up in an alcoholic household. Your dad stopped drinking for a while. And
my parents were divorced.
Okay.
So I grew up with my mom and saw him on the weekends. But he was living in Waco at the time.
And you were living in Houston?
Yes. And he would drive back on the weekends. I just remember an angry dude.
Was he not drinking?
He just not drinking.
Okay.
That's all he was doing. I think at the age of 21, his doctor told him, you can keep drinking, but you'll be doing it from a wheelchair. So he stopped.
Cold turkey.
Cold turkey. Total resistant against any kind of therapy, any kind of family stuff. That was out of the question for him.
And when did your parents get divorced?
Man, I must have been 1, 2. He wasn't allowed to be around us until he quit drinking. So I don't have any memories of him until about 7.
What were your memories of him as an adult?
God, I just never knew when the rage bottom would fall out. So it was almost like walking around on eggshells, but man, a great, loving person. He played a lot of golf, did a lot of things like that he took me with, but I was always frightened of him because he had such a horrible verbal assault of a temper, man. He never laid hands on me, but you wished he would have. When you're not drinking and you're not doing anything about it, that surge, it just walking around as a kid, this guy's hugging you and the next thing he's reaming you out. Great family guy, told me that worst mistake he ever made was divorcing my mom. She wouldn't take him back.
And by the way, this guy's, from what I know about you, the whole time he's running a business. We're not talking about a brown bag drunk.
No,
we're talking about a guy who's an executive.
Yeah, he's, he at an early age, man, he was the youngest partner at Dempsey Taylor investment firm in Houston. But he was he lived that life. You know, you knock off at noon and you go do your deal. You got women on the side and you go home.
Was that attractive to you or sexy to you or?
I wasn't exposed to it. I just heard stories about it, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That lifestyle was something that attracted me.
What age are you when he goes to drinking again? Because I want to get back to you and your alcoholism.
I was 17 when he died.
Okay.
So I was 15 when he started, and I was at military school and in Virginia. And I just remember my mom calling me going, your dad's not going to be able to make it to the family week the first year I was there. And I'm like, okay, why? He started drinking again. I'm like, sober him up? I mean, why? Y'all scared he's going to drink on the plane? I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Of course, at military school, I'm doing my deal. You know, I'm drinking and a lot of other things.
But you didn't have a real grasp for the absolute
had no idea.
Pit of despair that alcoholism could be for an alcoholic.
Had no clue.
It's that phenomenon of craving, right? Like, you know, right now I sit here with you 9 years sober, and I have a decision whether I want to drink or not. But the moment I do, the horse has left the barn, and there's no more decisions that I'm making as far as alcohol and drugs are concerned. And they're ultimately the rest of my life.
Well, the problem with me, Pete, is I want anything in my body or physically to make me feel better than I feel when I'm not doing anything. So it doesn't matter, man. I drink a beer or a drink and it's whatever else you put in front of me. I never shot up, but I'm glad I didn't. I was scared of needles. That's the only reason. Nothing really frightened me when I was drinking at a young age in Houston. That's what we did. I got to hang out with my sister, a lot of hot girls around her. She's 4 years older, dude. I'm doing things that kids my age are, that I get to go back and brag about.
You're in the big leagues.
Yeah, early, just suiting up. You know, I always wanted to wear ties and just be older. I just didn't want to be at that age. Godfather, movies, all that stuff was sexy. That lifestyle. It was crazy.
So I want to get back to your dad. You're at military school, and then we'll jump back to you, but you're at military school. Your father is back drinking again. First year, hey, he's not going to make family week. And then,
dude, I had to leave the next year. And it's an interesting story I was thinking about. You look back over years of sobriety and when you do the work and you go through it, some of those things are so deeply embedded that I didn't put them on my first 4-step.
First 4-step is a 4-step in the program. We talk about that you take a personal inventory for people that don't know, and you kind of take the garbage out big time.
Well, they bait you in. List everything that pisses you off. They don't tell you about the fourth column, which is what was my part. Mm-hmm. Who wants, dude, I've been looking in a mirror for so many years, disgusted with that person. Why the hell do y'all want to show me my part?
Yeah. So the 4th step is, for me personally, I would write out, hey, Jenny cheated on me, was rude to me and left me. So I resent her. But guess what? She resents you, or she made that move because your part in it is you were treating her like garbage because you were getting drunk every night with your friends. And it's like so simple for the regular person, but for the alcoholic, it's like, oh man,
that's ammo. Mm-hmm. You know, that's justification. I'm justified to react any way I so choose if y'all are threatening me. I just didn't realize how messed up that was. You know, I mean, kids are brutal. Military school was, looking back on it, it was great. When I was in it, I just remember my mom put me on an airplane, let my dad talking her into it. My heart was ripped out. Me and my mom were tight. And I just remember that. But man, it wasn't 2 weeks in, I'm finding that crowd. Mm-hmm. I'm finding those guys and we're starting to smoke and sneak stuff in, and it's an adventure, but never really understanding that if we got caught, you get expelled. I never put the two and two together. We just the train was out of the station and I was on it.
Did you ever get caught?
Not there, but here's an interesting story before I went to when my family finally put him into rehab.
Your dad?
Yeah, they got him down there, but he had to come in an ambulance from Waco to Houston. It was in Katy, Texas. And
so this is before the end of his life.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what happened that week before was all these guys we were hanging out with were seniors. So they were lieutenants and stuff. And they were going on to do stuff. I sucked in school. I'm ADHD, ADD.
Yeah.
School wasn't my thing. Social aspect of it was. But I just remember, man, they found the snitch. And I was an underclassman and my roommate was. And we were the guards. They were going to give him a blanket party. And we had to watch the doors.
Sounds like A Few Good Men.
Right. And exactly.
Yeah, Code Red.
Yeah, we got and these are a bunch of seniors, you know, and they're like, hey, Gordon, you're watching this. You're doing this. And I'm like, I don't want to. And they're like, you don't have a choice. And I just remember sitting there. And when the first bar of soap in that towel hit the scream. And not going to lie, man, it was sort of like, God, I feel sorry for that guy, but damn, man, this is, you know, no one knows what's going on. And after that, it was a big deal, man. They split up everybody, and me and that underclassman were their targets to break and rat those guys out. And I just remember this captain sitting down, kid, looking at me and going, I'll do worse to you than what they're fixing to put you through. And I went, cool. I won't, they won't hear it from me.
You didn't snitch?
No, but what I did do is I went to flew home. My dad was at rehab, and I'm listening to all this stuff. And all I can think of is I don't want to.
What kind of stuff? Recovery stuff. So
yeah.
You go to the rehab.
Yeah. And doing the family week, and they're throwing Al-Anon at me. And I'm like, shit, man, I'm not here for me.
Yeah, Al-Anon is for, you know, your sister or your girlfriend or your mother to learn how to deal with you being an alcoholic.
Absolutely.
And so you're there, they're giving you the Al-Anon spiel about your dad.
And I'm 15.
Yeah.
And they're going, guess what? Write everything down that he's done that is hurt you. And I'm like, well, I got to go home with this guy. I don't know who y'all been dealing with here. I got my own problems. And by the way, Mom, I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Here's what's going on. You cannot send me back there. And I divulged everything to her. Everything I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first time she said, you're just going to have to go back, and I can't pull you out and protect you, but you'll do the right thing, or whatever she said. And I went back, got through, and came back to Houston and graduated from a small private school in Houston.
So you went to military school just for 1 year? For 2 years.
This all happened the second year I was there.
Okay.
Well, my dad passed away in the interim.
Okay.
And so it
was time to come home.
Yeah.
So dad passes away. I'm real curious about the fact that your dad goes to rehab. It obviously doesn't stick. He goes out, and what happens?
Well, he's pissed when he finally gets out. And you know the drill. They're going to go sober living in AA. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
But what me and my sister did at that time, he married the lady he cheated on with my mom. And me and my sister went full bore at her during those. I mean,
while he was in rehab.
Yeah. And so all of us are sitting in there, and me and my sister are just full frontal attack on this woman, and who I knew the circumstances. And my dad said, I don't care what you think, you know, you're going to love her or whatever. And that's probably, now that me and you are talking about it, probably one of the first real resentments towards him and that woman, that fueled my further demise. And I just didn't know how to handle it, and my mom, she had to sort of suck it up and be around this woman. Okay. And she did it. I mean, gracefully. That's what my mom did for me my whole life. Showed me things that had a huge impact on me. She was my best friend, my mom, my dad. She was everything. And, but she had a drug and alcohol problem as well. So I was, man.
Did she ever get sober?
Yeah, she actually got sober a week before me. My sister and her did. My sister got a DWI in LA when it was AA was cool. Uh-huh. And she'd call and, anonymity wasn't in her card. She'd go, man, you wouldn't believe who was in there. Such and such actor, Robert Downey Jr. Yeah. And I'm like, man, AA sounds pretty cool. So I dabbled in it. There were some.
So your mom got a DWI in California?
No, my sister.
And your sister started
mandatory
to go to
AA, yeah.
And so she was telling you everything that she saw.
Well, the weird thing about that too was my aunt is 30 some odd years sober. And
so what's the scorecard look like? Or did it look like? So mom is sober, program sober or no?
When I was, when I got sober.
Yeah. Mom, I got sober before you. And so your sister is sober too?
My aunt.
And your aunt.
My aunt is the one that got sober from my dad's stint, dude. It worked on her. It just didn't work on the one we thought it would. That's the beauty of our program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, she's sitting there going through all this and, it's all about my dad and something's happening to her.
Yeah.
And man, she forged in all guns. Every time you go to her house, and this is the woman that taught me how to take tequila shots. I partied with my aunt.
And you see that change and you're like, man, that's a miracle. I had a guy in my life, and I've referenced this before, who got sober when we were 18. And I'm telling you, and the guy was on fire and he was very positive. And so that light that was coming off of him, for me, I said, I can do that.
I got a way out if this thing gets.
There you go, dude. There is let me put this in my back pocket because I ain't ready now, but I've got it there.
But did you really believe it, Pete?
I didn't know that I could do it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. No, I wasn't sure if I could do it.
But the idea was there.
The idea was there. Yeah.
And see, that's part of my problem.
Yeah.
I can see Pete doing it, but it's not going to happen to a guy like me.
Yeah.
Dude, I've had it all handed to me, and I'm like the guy in Caddyshack. What's the grandson? Spalding, dude. I'm the guy slugging leftovers, digging through my ashtray, looking for butts on a hard run. I never had horrible consequences. I lived through a car accident at 16.
Drinking involved?
Yeah, about a case.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good idea to drive with a breakfast jack and a damn Budweiser. And I hit a house a block away from my house, blew through this guy's living room, man, 3 a.m. And
at 16.
At 16, actually home from military school. You got to celebrate with your buddies when you get back, man. And so my dad went to military school with that guy. I'm on private property. He doesn't press charges. The cops are pissed. I skate. And all I can come up with is one of those things got to go. Okay, don't go to Jack in the Box. Keep, you know what I mean? Because that's
absolutely.
That stuff's my medicine, man.
I've talked about it. I had a situation, and those are the moments as a young person, a young alcoholic, where you can look back in sobriety and say, wow, how crazy was that? I won't get the breakfast jack next time. Yeah, and
you just, what if the guy was sleeping on the couch?
You had your first drink in 6th grade, your sister's boyfriend, and then it evolves, and now we're in military school, and we're going balls to the wall.
Yeah, because my sister has access to all that stuff. It's funny how you're in that environment, and my group of people always had a dealer as a friend.
Yeah. It's funny how we end up in those situations, right?
Exactly. So, and my sister was a real strong person in my life. I looked up to her, and I just want to hang out with her, and they let me. But comes with that, I was introduced to, coke, ecstasy, anything I wanted. Cocaine scared me, but it also attracted me. I wouldn't just sit down and do a bunch of lines with you. I'd have to have some drinks.
Yeah.
To sort of get loose and get in the, the mood. And I don't know, man. I love watching people pour drinks back then, like vodka and in the cocktail glass. And it was just a very attractive.
There's a romantic feel.
God, man. I mean, it just, yeah.
Especially when you run in, look, you were that circle. I was lucky to run in that circle at times. You're in that high end situation. It's like, what could be wrong with this?
Yeah, but see, we'd leave.
And then you ended up,
now I'm down in Lower Westheimer of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
These people look up to me,
mm-hmm.
a guy like me, and I'm sort of looking up to them. I'm like, man, maybe I want to be a hood rat or whatever, and
this drug dealer looks like a bad MFer.
Yeah. He's got the gear. He's got a nice car, and it's that movie role. Anything to be
somebody other than me.
I don't want to be Gordon. What is Gordon? Who is Gordon?
Well, we're going to find out now. We're going to continue to find out. You are in military school and you're drinking, you're going nuts, you're blowing through houses with cars. How does it go from there? How does it evolve? Because I know you actually, dad passes away and then you're the guy in the business.
You know what's weird about that? We had 2 open bars after we buried this man. People are drinking, sort of like celebrating. That was my perception of alcohol. Celebrate, maybe some pain, but people are there and people are talking to you, but alcohol's involved.
That
alcohol was such a damn mixed message at that point. Looking back on it, going, what the hell were y'all doing?
The alcoholic family that I was a part of is we're going to bury our head in the sand. To real problems, right? I mean, this is clearly a problem. Our 16-year-old son drove a car through a house.
His dad just drank himself to death.
And we're now let's celebrate. And that's the environment you grow up in oftentimes as a young alcoholic.
Right.
I mean, how the hell and now you're putting this stuff in your body, and oh, by the way, all the noise that was going on is now quiet. And I feel like I can be the person who I always longed to be. I mean, what the hell's wrong with this?
And I'm young, and I'm at the age where I'm getting his Social Security checks, dude, at 17. Now it's 17, got some money, got the same name as your dad, those places that let you charge. Dude, it's game on. Now I'm my dad. He's gone. They're looking to me. I got this.
And so your dad ran this business. He dies, you take over.
Yeah.
How old are you?
19. My grandmother apparently didn't like the lifestyle I was living in Houston. And she said, either rehab or you're moving to Austin. In fact, you're moving to Austin. And me and...
So at 19, you're running this business?
19, I'm leaving Houston to move to Waco.
To run this business?
To learn the business.
Okay.
Yeah, to run it. That's what I saw. No, they said just go there and learn. So I get here, all of a sudden I'm sitting in my dad's desk at 19, and there's people there that have worked there for years and years, and I got this big desk, big office. Now the ego. Now I don't have to be Gordon. I can do it just a little bit better than my dad, and everybody respected him. I sort of lived that lie. Pete, it wasn't until about 8 years ago that I started being Gordon.
And you'd been sober for how long?
That's a whole, dude. That's
23 years we're talking.
Yeah, but that's in little bits of this program, like when I reflect and talk to another alcoholic and do the things the program has slated us to do. The last paragraph of our book lays the game plan out for you.
Which is?
Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. It just says clean house and give away freely what was given to you. the magic for me, man, I always had a big heart. I always fought that battle. You know what I mean? Sensitive kid. Why do you want me to be sensitive when my buddies are ragging on me? I always wanted to put others before me. There's a fine line with that. You know, so I dabble around this. There's a lot of spiritual things that I'm attracted to outside of the program.
But you're digging in, so you're getting the same feel when you're working it that all this stuff you were filling that hole in your soul with. I'm talking about myself, but I'm guessing you were the same way.
Yeah, and little bits and pieces of this thing are, and I'm listening to my mom and my sister talk program. My aunt's got everything plastered all over her house. I mean, she went from a fun party chick to like, oh my God, what's she in? What is this? You mean God grant me everything all over her house, the crosses? Yeah. You know how we do.
Sure, yeah.
And man, but you know what? I got to ask her to share her story and introduce her at an AA meeting couple of 6 weeks ago. I think you had a gig to do, and man, so God
I remember
put you on your deal. You couldn't make it, but look what door opened, bro. I got to introduce my aunt at an AA meeting, Zoom, and very powerful. Who would have ever thought?
Before we get back to your journey in sobriety, because, you know, as you mentioned, you're 23 years without drinking and going kind of working the program sort of before you kind of hit a breaking point, and then you really have to dig in.
Man, there's if you're that person that can put it down and those things get filled, man, my hats are off to you. That wasn't me. It got emotionally worse. I became my dad.
Well, like your father, you saw both sides and you executed perfectly, both the drunk and the person in sobriety or not sobriety, the dry drunk.
I just didn't realize that my disease was addicted to everything. It didn't matter what it was. If I was going to play golf, dude, it may be 2 years every day. I'm all in until that stopped working. We go hunting. I'm all in until it stopped. And I soon, over a course of years, I get married to my, I've told you, best friend, man. She's normal.
Not an alcoholic.
She's not an alcoholic, man. Whatever normal is, but she, which there's a lot of that going on, and she doesn't understand me, and I don't understand her. But she's just been right there by my side, and we were friends, you know, and I think that's the foundation of me and her.
And I'm gonna get back to when you're 19 now. Right before she comes into your life, or leading up to when she comes to your life, you're running this business pretty much as you're learning it, but you're running it, right?
Coat and tie. My grandmother told me every day, show up with a coat and tie.
Well, how are people that work for you looking at you? The guys who have been there for...
It was weird because I knew those guys. I used to come up and work outside with the maintenance guys. And I loved it out there. So I knew all these people. I just remember there was a woman there that had started working for my great grandfather when she was 17, and she's older woman.
Because this business has been in your family for generations.
Yeah, and I walk in one day and she goes, "I'm just going to tell you one thing. I don't work for you. I'm not going to. You can't tell me what to do, and I don't even know really why you're here." But she's also loving, but she gave, before she died, she gave 75 years of her life to that company. And we were blessed to have people that had just been there forever. And they sort of, the F-ups here.
Yeah.
And just pacifying. But I always wandered back out to those guys outside. And that's where I learned the business. Outside. People person. We lease buildings to people. I'm a people person. So I'd go in and talk to these people because I didn't know what the hell they were doing in there. You know, one day you can't balance your checkbook. The next day they go, you need to sign off on this general ledger. And I'm like, hey, I'm a bottom line guy. Just show me the bottom line. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, dude, I can't even balance my own checkbook. I call my mom and I'm like, what am I doing? You know, I didn't even go to college. What? And she's like, I don't know what you're doing, but that's where you're supposed to be.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't rap, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.
And so what's the drinking like at this point?
Man, well, I became my dad, man, and at the country club and at all these things. Because I looked so much like my dad, now I'm accepted by that crowd. And so I'm yakking it up at the country club, cocktails, doing it goes downhill quick.
How are drugs involved?
Yeah, but not so much because I was always scared if I get caught, I'm done. And I remember our now sheriff was a good friend of my dad, and he came by my office.
Parnell McNamara.
Yeah, came by my office and said, son, your dad was a real close friend of mine, but your name's ended up on some lists that shouldn't be. Apparently, I'd been hanging out with some people that were doing a lot more than I knew. And I never forgot that.
Did that scare you into sobriety? How much longer did you go? Because that's something that'll shake you up.
Well, it did enough for me to step back and hang and do my drinking at Ridgewood.
Okay, which is a country club here in Waco. Yeah,
not go to those places. But I wanted more information. I wanted to know what that meant, but I just didn't have the
balls
to do it. He told me just stop, and I thanked him for that when he ran for sheriff, and he had a big impact on where my life was going in Waco. And I didn't know Waco was so small. Everybody knew what I was doing except for me.
Well, when you're truly an alcoholic, you're the last one to know, right?
Everything. When I got inserted in the program, I keep telling my sponsor, I'm like, why am I the last to know? Why am I always the last to know? He's like, because we spend our whole lives not looking at ourselves. It's always something out there that's a cause and effect. And we give that power away. If you come at me and you make, and me and you have a disagreement and it twists me off, I just gave you all the power. That was my struggle with my wife. I wanted her to have the power, but when she had it, I wanted it back. And
this is when you're sober.
Yeah, which is, I've heard it said, my disease is out there doing push-ups. My disease was like a inferno that never went out. And all I could tell somebody was, I'm not drinking.
And even because you're in sobriety, but you're not working a program.
And everybody's giving you attaboys in the outside world.
Because you're not getting drunk. I mean, you're not driving cars in the houses anymore.
All my friends are like, man, dude, how did you do that? I'm like, I had to.
I'm curious to know, what was the success of the business like once you took over? I mean, did you guys not skip a beat?
We had some moments. I mean, someone who was very close to me, was like a mom to me, embezzled a large sum of money right out from under us. We survived that. The program and
was that when you were drunk or sober?
About the last year I was drinking.
Okay.
And funny enough, that's what that was the ammo that they used against me.
Who's they? What do you mean?
We were suing her, and she got arrested, and that was their stance. and all this, that he wasn't maintaining. He was drunk. And I just remember in a deposition in that in that hungover, trying to anesthetize. I've been there, I'm 20 or 21 doing this stuff. And I just remember going, huh, she stole from me and y'all are sitting here telling me because I was drinking. I didn't handle those depositions very well. So we had to settle those things. I think I was more of a detriment to our side because I didn't understand that in a deposition, just let that guy talk. You don't have to react. I don't know how many breaks we took during all that.
But that's a window into the mind of the alcoholic, right? Just be quiet. You can't help yourself.
When people are, you can't. You just can't. And that, along with some other things, I just.
What are the other things?
Well, the job, the family, all that wasn't fixing me.
What's the moment, the jumping off point for you to get sober? What happens?
My mom and my sister got sober. They call me. I'm hammered on a golf course and they go, "Hey, we got sober, or we're not drinking anymore. And we quit drinking last week or something." And I go,
so they quit together.
Yeah, sort of.
Okay.
And I just looked at I didn't know it, but I looked at my cousin. I went, "Dude, I just drank my last beer." And that was it. That day, I just quit. But
April of 1991.
Yeah, but it wasn't me. I mean, a guy like me should have been relapsing 50 million times, and I never did. So our literature and all the stuff we know says God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. And apparently those forces watched what happened to my dad, and this is what I believe, and they were working me. My dad couldn't do it. And I remember the look in his eyes. My mom made me go back and visit him, and he passed away a week after that. But he just looked at me, and I asked him, "Is this it?" He's 45. And he said, "Yeah." But the look he was looking at me was, I did the best I could. Don't go down this road. It took me until about 3 years ago to let a little bit of that go. I still blame him for a lot of stuff, which is not a good thing for me, but it's reality. He hurt my mom, and my mom was my life, and she spiritually fed me through all this. If it wasn't for her and people in my life, dude, I would have been done. I shouldn't be sitting here. The way I felt sitting in a house with everything at my feet, just going, man, I hope I don't wake up tomorrow.
And again, this is why you're sober.
Yeah. The in and outs in AA, the people I knew in AA were doing something for me. Or I would have picked up a drink. You asked what happened that day that,
on the golf course.
Okay. Yeah. That was a big spiritual, moment that I had to go through and sort and be able to look back on it and give me just a little bit to go, well, if you try something else, maybe you'll get a similar result. So I'd go into AA, you guys would start to get to know me, and I'd bail.
You were around AA, you weren't in it.
No, dude, I was, everybody thought I was, and that was cool too.
You got them fooled, yeah.
Except the people that knew. And so, when you walk into your first meeting and you go, I think the gig's up, because you just feel these are professionals at BS. That's another moment. Am I willing to step down there? Because I know those people know exactly who I am. I can feel it. None of them said it. I didn't listen enough. I could feel it. And I'm a feeler. You know, I knew when I was not doing the right thing. I knew it. But the other side was a little bit more powerful.
So when you go back, you're on the golf course. What happens after that? How do you stay sober? Is there anything you do that ultimately keeps you sober, or are you just kind of coasting as a dry drunk for a while?
I'm coasting. I had all this other stuff going on that filled that until it didn't. And
Work, your wife.
Well, I mean, and part of my job's to go play golf.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, that's where you make all the deals.
How quickly did you start to become, as you mentioned, addicted to golf?
Oh, I played golf ever since I was 7. So I love golf anyway. I just never had a job well, I never had a job before this gig. I was a sacker at a grocery store. But now, dude, I'm 20 and I'm chopping it up, or 27, and I'm chopping it up with these dudes on the golf course, but they're teaching me something.
You're around them for a reason.
And
real quick, I want to interject. When you do stop drinking, you will you'll fall ass backwards into a better crowd, right? More than likely. A better crowd than you were hanging out with before.
Right.
But just by kind of being around them, you are going to kind of get a better quality of life.
And a lot of those guys are my dad's friends. And so now they're patting me going, good job. And they're wanting to help me learn the business world. And I met a great mentor of mine, was a good friend of my dad's that gave me the first piece of advice is in a business sense, that he said, get your own banker, get your own lawyer, get your own accountant, and you won't live under the shadow of the people that were here before you.
And those are hard decisions to make. You talk about a family business, though, where you've had people work for you guys for decades. Now you got to tell some of them that you want to make a change.
And some events.
And you can't get drunk after you do it.
No, and some events happened that led us to that. The embezzlement, we needed to switch banks and stuff like that. So if I would have just been looking and using all of it, if I could tell anybody today, throw yourself into the program at the very beginning and just ride it. Don't go dry, but people do. How many times have you been in a meeting and heard that guy 15 years going, I better get serious about what I'm doing and take a look at this because I'm dying and I'm not even drinking. I mean, as an alcoholic, the disease of that, AA is my medicine. Doing this for the message to get out, or whatever we're doing, that's our reward, bro.
I know
meeting you. I wouldn't have met you if it weren't. What do we have in common? Pete, you're bringing something to me. We've talked, and the stuff you're going through is making me a better husband, a better person in general. That's the magic.
Yeah.
Because we're doing this with no ulterior motive, no side business deal. It's what we do.
Yeah.
And we don't know it until we start going,
oof.
I was in a meeting and I go, that first pop, that first spiritual deal, you're going, dude, I never did any drugs or alcohol that made me feel that good. And it's steady. You don't have the ups and downs like I did. That's just emotional roller coaster, spewing hatred at the people you love the most, trying to just tell them that's how I feel. And they're going, you hadn't been drinking, Gordon. What's the damn problem? And I go, and I said, I know. I don't know. I shouldn't feel this way because I'm not drinking. What is going on? I must be losing my mind.
So you get sober, you're coasting.
If you want to even, yeah, I guess that's a good word, but
You don't even want to call it that because coasting is actually somewhat
Because
attractive.
it was just, well, it was miserable. Even on the golf course, man, I was just had this, ugh, I shouldn't be here.
Is your wife saying anything to you about how you're acting? You've known your wife before you got sober. You guys get married.
You know, she wasn't exposed to my direct anger issues until probably right before we had our first son, because it was still fun. I mean, me and her could drop at the dime and go. It was something I wanted so much to have a family, but I was so petrified of that even when we had our kids, I got this feeling going, why'd you do that? They're just taking up all our time.
And dude, this is all the stuff, right? This is all the stuff.
I got money in my pocket.
Anybody else who gets sober, okay, and goes through these major events in life, starting a family, having kids, having a big job where, you are the managing partner, all of a sudden they're able to talk to other alcoholics and go to meetings and really get in it. And that's how they get through moments like that. One, that's how they get through them without imploding. And this is my experience from seeing this happen. And two, that's how they enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
But now here you are, this guy who's just holding on too tight, right? Not going to meetings, not utilizing the tools of the program. And oh, by the way, the spirituality, a component of it. And here you are, everybody has those fleeting thoughts. But when I'm not taking care of myself by way of the program, those thoughts will get beachfront real estate in my head, and that's it.
We don't think we're good enough to do anything. I mean, that's my alcoholism. But that's a lie. My mom used to tell me, dude, you're just keep going. So she fed me during these dry periods.
Keep going.
And she would lay things out and go, do you think that's a coincidence? And I'd think back and go, she may be right.
And that is kind of a God thing when you think about the recovery you were surrounded by in your family, and sometimes people will kind of coast that way. I keep using the word coast, but if you're a therapist that's sober, but you're a drug and alcohol therapist, sometimes you'll hear they don't go to meetings and then they lose their minds. But you do kind of still brush up against those moments of, where the light will shine on you.
My original sponsor said to me, everything you want, I know who you are because we knew each other outside the program. He goes, it's in AA. Just get in there. I'm like, why? I got to tee off with my real friends. I'm not looking for friends.
But faith without works is dead, right? God will move the mountain, but you got to bring the shovel.
I didn't realize when y'all taught me how to pray that I needed to take action.
Yes, and that's what we did. When my ass was in a jackpot, right? That's when I would talk to God. That and when I needed the Eagles to win. And now here I am, and I'm sober, and I'm saying, hey, God, can you take this from me? I'll do my part. And it's like, and all of a sudden it starts to work. So you have this body of work that you can lean on and say, hey, man, I know when I do the right thing and I'm sober, it may not work out exactly the way that I want it to, but it'll work out the way it's supposed to, and I'm going to be okay. And you put that together for a long period of time, and you start, or a longer period of time, or some time, and you say, okay, I get this now. And so it's practicing that faith, And again, I use God, you use God. Some people just use the universe. Whatever works, whatever works. It ain't you. Yeah,
the water bottle.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got to.
Yeah, it's not you. It's the whole thing is bigger than you. That's what I would tell, when you tell a sponsor you're struggling. And the last thing I'll say, I don't want to go down the God rabbit hole, but I was thinking the other day, I always had an issue with God. I would tell you why God was, I was just
wouldn't work for you.
Wouldn't work. No, because I wanted to keep drinking. So, I mean, I was on the debate squad because I would always say, well, if I've got to accept any kind of program, the God's a part of that. So I'm going to say, I think that God doesn't work. So now I don't have to have, be a part of a program because I don't want to get sober at the end of the day. So I'll battle and debate all day. But then finally, when you get that desperation, the gift of desperation, and you just want to stop, it's like, hey man, whatever you got, Okay, this works because I see Gordon and it's working for him. I see Mike and it's working for him. I see Scott and it's working for him. Their lives have changed and they're incredible. I had a sponsor tell me once, Scott, as a guy who you and I both know, he said, do you believe that I believe? And I said, yeah. Here's a guy that's 30 years sober and has a life beyond his wildest dreams. Yeah, I do. He's like, okay, goodbye.
See, and that's how but at the beginning, that's what's so weird about what they're saying. That makes sense to me today. But when that was said to me, something like that, I go, what? Oh, okay, now what? And they go, that's it. And you're going, nothing's ever been this easy. It's just hard to do. So my guy would say, you want to feel good about yourself? Quit lying. The white lies. I wasn't a bald-faced liar. I just skirt a little bit here and there. But I always felt wrong when I did it. So there was something there. And something else that somebody told me is...
And if you practice those white lies today, by the way, I know personally, you still feel like crap.
Well, you
can find that gear real fast.
It won't have an impact on me immediately, but it's stored in there and just gives me a little bit more of an excuse to do something shady next time. And those are the things that keep adding up on me. And all of a sudden I feel like this worthless human being. And my wife comes in the room and goes, what's your problem? And I just explode to tell her what my problem is. And it's all of a sudden I'm hurling yous. It's this, it's that.
And by the way, that'll get you drunk.
The rage thing. And have you talked to a lot of people that have that got sober and get addicted to rage?
Sure. I talked to some people.
So that fueled me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, you got 2 kids that are seeing this, this angry guy. And the thing I swore not to be was my dad, man. That I didn't want that part of him. And, man, my breaking point was I almost hurled my youngest son. I didn't hit him, but I knew when I had him to get his attention that wasn't going to work next time. So what did I do? I relapsed spiritually and I went to a meeting and I said it. If you've ever been down to where my home group, there's a coffee bar and everybody that walked through there, how are you, Gordon? I go, I didn't hit my son today. I didn't. And the obsession to rage was removed that day and it hadn't come back. Now, I hear people say that moment was and the obsession to drink was lifted. Mine's just the obsession to do the things that would lead me. So my whole program at that moment, I go, I'm a freaking raging alcoholic that was fixing to drink and didn't even have a clue. It was the furthest thing from my mind. You guys and sponsoring and going through the work. They go, do you know how close you were? Dude. And to end up like your dad. And man, I was all in after that.
So one of your sons has cystic fibrosis. And
add that on a dry drunk when they're born. Seriously, you want to cast blame? I did to my wife because she was adopted. It's a genetic disease. I didn't tell her that. I stored it. If you knew, and she doesn't know her birth parents, that was just fuel to say, wasn't my fault.
And it's more rage.
And it takes 2 people. This is how stupid it is. 2 people have to have the gene to pass it on. Well, how of an alcoholic is that? To know that information and go, wasn't my side of it, wasn't my part. Must have been yours. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that sinks with me. Resentment builds and justification. And it led to that moment I described with my son.
And so
because I saw him I saw me. I was hurling all of that at myself.
And is this your son with cystic
No,
fibrosis?
God shined a light through my son with CF, and I've watched him. He gets up every day and got to do all this stuff just to stay healthy, like I should be doing. That's prescribed in our program. And I'm like, he's 15, man. And he's not bitter about any of this. I started going, I'll make that disease about me and give me an excuse to be an idiot, a raging, not grateful for one thing, but the gratefulness was thumping in there. That's the miserable part for me.
How has your life changed from the moment you started to make a commitment back to working a program again?
8 years of, like your lady that was on your podcast, Ali, she says it'll be the most hardest, painful, and hardest thing you've ever done, but the best feeling. That's been the last 8 years. But I did what y'all told me to do. I listened in meetings. I watched and saw the light coming on in newcomers' eyes and went, man, I wonder if that miracle can happen for me. And everybody's going, you've been 25. I said, I know that. That's just a number. I've used that excuse too long. I'm dying. There's a lot of 20, 30-year sober people in meetings that are dying because at the end of our book, it says, now get your own house in order, clean up the wreckage of your past and go share this.
You got to give it away to keep it.
And I hated that. I hated it. Why do I want to give this away? I want to keep it for myself. You're in the right place, Gordon. Keep coming back. And now today I get to do this. I get to love my kids. I get to let my kids be who they are. I get to love the person I married again. My best friend. I see her. I told you last week, man, I feel like we're dating again. And we're 29 years married. It's a beautiful life. I can't describe it, man. It's a miracle.
I think you just did a pretty good job. Gordon, man, thank you so much, dude.
Part 2.
Yeah, to be continued. Thanks.
No, thanks, Pete. And man, thank you for what you're doing. And for including me in it. I appreciate it. It means the world.
Yeah, you got it, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks so much for listening to the Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been Rogue Media Network Podcast.
Pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach,
And I'm Mike.
and we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros, Foes, Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about bros and foes and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't rap, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.